Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's session of the daily newspaper analysis. Today is the 14th of April, and today we also commemorate the birth anniversary of Baba Bhimrao Ambedkar. All right, he is credited with giving us the constitution, heading the draft committee of the constitution. All right, so do remember him. In all probability, we will get an article about him in tomorrow's. All right. Beginning with the first piece of news for today is that the Supreme Court has finally given due consideration to the fact that the recent special intensive revision exercise that has been undertaken by the Election Commission of India resulted in massive removal of voters from the voting lists, and the new lists have come out with major discrepancies. All right, and the Supreme Court has further highlighted the fact that voting right, although is not a legal, is not a fundamental right in the country, it still entails being a sentimental right for a large number of people in the country. All right, so I can go through this particular article. Then the next one is that we've got a new leader for in Hungary, and Peter Magyar is now the next president of Hungary, and he has ousted the erstwhile president, that is Orban. And this particular ousting is particularly significant because firstly is a new politician, and at only 45 he has won the elections with a landslide victory. All right, so these days we are seeing that the leaders that are being chosen as the head of their respective countries are very young and very dynamic, which basically shows us that now the voters also, they are looking forward for younger people to govern and administer them. All right, so do go through this article, do remember his name. Then the next article and the next few articles that we are going to see are on the delimitation, the proposed delimitation exercise for the invocation and implementation of the 106th Constitution Amendment Act of 2023, that is the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. All right. So the budget session of the Parliament was supposed to come to an end on the 16th of April. The session has been extended by 2 days till the 18th of April to undertake special discussions on the implementation of the Women Reservation Act 2023 in the next delimitation exercise, which is supposed to be undertaken in the country after we get the census data. All right, this census data is going to be received by the country in 2027. The delimitation exercise would naturally take place in 2028 for the 2029 elections. All right. Also, the government has brought in a bill to bring about increase in the number of seats in the Lok Sabha. So as of now, we have a total number of seats as 543 in the Lok Sabha. The Parliament, the government has proposed to increase this total number of seats to 816, reserving 1/3 out of these 816 seats for women. All right, now because you have to align territorial constituencies just in 1 year span, which could be a problem, the government had proposed that instead of undertaking delimitation after the 2027 census data is received, the government decided to undertake a delimitation exercise in the country on the basis of the 2011 census data. Now, that is one thing that has been opposed by the Congress government. They've opposed this, saying that the delimitation exercise and implementation of the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam bill should be undertaken after we get the census data of the new one in 2027. All right, so the India bloc has raised certain concerns on delimitation, caste census, and the elections following that. All right, they've also raised concerns and they've given alternatives as to what must be done with respect to this. And this particular article here also talks about Article 81 and Article 82 of the Constitution. Article 81 of the Constitution provides for the maximum number of seats in the Lok Sabha, which as of now is 550, out of which 543 are as of now occupied in Lok Sabha. And if we are to increase the maximum number of seats in the Lok Sabha from 543 to 816, then an amendment is entailed in Article 81. Then we have Article 82, which provides for compulsory delimitation or realignment of territorial constituencies after every census for the Lok Sabha. All right. Then, whenever we undertake the delimitation exercise in any country is in India specifically is undertaken aligning with the population in that particular region. All right. So it is always a proportional representation of one particular MP representing a significant number of people, and this ratio roughly is 1:10.11 lakh people. All right. Now, naturally, whenever states they have higher population, larger number of representatives would be for that respective state in the Lok Sabha. States with lesser population will have lesser number of MPs. So now, if population is going to be the basis, then the article draws our attention to the fact that the southern states are going to lose their seats. All right. Why? Because we've seen since the last census itself, we've seen a drastic reduction in the population of southern states, and as against that, we've seen increase in the population of North Indian states. So naturally, North Indian states who already have a larger number of seats in the Lok Sabha would get a higher share as compared to that of the southern states. All right. So this is what the article talks about. Do go through this article. It's an important one. All right. Then just a few days back, we did see an article where the Supreme Court had, said that anybody who's converted to Islam, anybody in the sense, people belonging to the lower caste or the scheduled caste category, if they've converted to Christianity or Islam, these two religions, they do not give recognition to the caste system. If they've converted to these two religions, then their entire reservation or whatever benefits that they entail as a member of the scheduled caste category would come to an end. All right. However, we've seen certain amendments on this order, and consecutively Buddhism and Sikhism along with Hinduism were added, that people belonging to scheduled caste category following Hinduism, Buddhism or Sikhism could avail reservation and other government benefits, but people who converted to Christianity and Islam would not. All right. So now a third extension has been given to a particular Supreme Court panel, which is determining that whether scheduled caste status should be extended to Dalits after they get converted to Christianity or Islam. All right. So do keep it in mind. All right. Then now we come to a series of articles which again talk about the present US-Israel crisis. All right. So here we've seen the Iranian envoy giving a statement, the Iranian envoy to India, that is Mohammad Patali. He's given a statement that US and Israel, they've met with strategic defeat in the war. Why strategic defeat? Because when the war actually began, we did see major statements being issued by both US as well as Israel that their entire agenda for undertaking this war is to bring about a regime change, to do away with all the military aspirations of Iran. But nothing of that sort actually happened. Today we are around 42 days into the war, and Iran has still been able to hold its strong footing in its own country without any regime change. All right. So naturally, it was a massive miscalculation on the part of Israel and USA to undertake this attack on Iran. Then, although a 2-week ceasefire has been called for between the United States of America and Israel and Iran, the ceasefire agreement also included Lebanon, which Israel has not given its due recognition. Israel has intensified its entire assault on Lebanon and has undertaken attacks on Lebanon in spite of a ceasefire. And with all these attacks, they've actually resulted in massive loss of life of the Lebanese people. All right. So a lot of countries are condemning all the attacks that Israel has undertaken on Lebanon, and also US is going to be hosting these talks. All right. Then another thing that US day before yesterday, the entire talks bringing to a peaceful conclusion the war between US and Iran failed, which was being brokered by Pakistan. So now that the talks have failed, we did see that the United States of America issued a statement saying that they are going to undertake blockading the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz has actually become this entire critical point in the war that has, you know, uh, that has actually uh, made the war more towards, inclined the entire war more in favor of Iran than in US and Israel. All right. Okay, then US military has undertaken blockading of Iranian ports. There are around 5 to 6 major ports in Iran, both in the northern part of the city as well as the southern part of the city around the Strait of Hormuz. All right. So they have undertaken their entire blockading exercise. They've brought in a lot of US Navy and they've begun the entire proposition to do so. All right. The same thing here also. Now, because of this entire blocking, no oil shipping, etc., whatever little trade that Iran was actually was actually permitting to happen, no longer has been given due recognition, and this has resulted in the increase in oil prices to $100 a barrel. Okay. Then India has called for unimpeded freedom of navigation. That is all that India has been doing since the war actually began. India did not take sides. India has always called for dialogue, diplomacy, and peaceful negotiations to bring the war to an end, and that is what it is doing, and is calling for unimpeded freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. India is one of those countries which is highly dependent on West Asian oil as well as gas supplies. So this would be something that India will perpetually be calling for. Okay, then this article is that this year we are again anticipating an El Nino event. What is El Nino? El Nino is a phenomena that occurs because of a warm current that starts flowing in the month of December along the Peruvian coast. And this El Nino current raises the temperature of the Pacific Ocean to such an extent that the high temperatures that we experience in the northern part of India during the months of June, July, comparatively becomes lesser than the high temperatures that are experienced in the Pacific Ocean, due to which the southwest monsoon winds, which are the main rain-bearing winds in India, they, instead of getting attracted to the Indian mainland to bring in rainfall, get attracted to the Pacific Ocean to undertake, and therefore the Pacific Ocean or the northern parts of Australia, they receive higher rainfall and India experiences a drought-like condition. Okay, so the meteorological department has forecast a below normal rainfall for India during the southwest monsoon because of the El Nino effect. Now again, this would have a cascading effect in the sense that if we are going to have below normal rainfall because of El Nino, this will affect our agricultural sector. Agriculture is going to will be affected, which will affect the entire food security of the country. And then again, we are headed towards experiencing food inflation as well in this year. All right. Now coming to the editorials for today, the first particular editorial is on Hungary, the entire regime change in Hungary, that how the people have outvoted the last president who was prime minister who had been in power for the last 16 years, and he has been ousted, Viktor Orban, and he has been replaced by a very young president who's had very little stint in the entire politics of Hungary to be elected as the new president, which is Magyar. All right. So you can go through this article. Then this particular article again draws our attention to the fact that how the West Asian crisis is negatively impacting India and India's economy. So as of now, we are facing some sort of shortage in terms of LNG and oil. This is further going to aid in the shortage of fertilizers. Then without energy security, without fertilizers, our major industrial sectors is going to be hindered, its development production is going to be hindered, and along with that also the agriculture sector would be negatively impacted. All right, and then naturally we are heading towards an El Nino year this year, which could also result in below average monsoon, again resulting in higher food inflation. All of this naturally does not bring good news for the Indian economy. Then the next article is on how it is the duty of the Supreme Court to protect faith in democracy. All right, democracy in the sense that the rights of the people must be given their due recognition, and it is the duty of the Supreme Court to ensure that this should be done. So we did see the first article for today, that the Supreme Court has finally pulled up the Election Commission of India and has demanded answers as to taking away the sentimental right of the people, that is the right to vote. All right, so that related to that, the article gives you that information in detail. All right, then this particular article is on Subhash Chandra Bose and his entire vision to get India independent, and how his vision actually did not align with that of Mahatma Gandhi. He believed in the idea of that you may use whatsoever means that you want to, so long as you're attaining that end goal of wars. Then this article is a take on the wonderful feat that India has recently achieved in terms of becoming the second country in the world to have a fast breeder reactor. A fast breeder reactor is such a nuclear reactor which actually requires very less raw material, and with very less raw material produces larger quantities of fissile fuel. All right, so that is a massive feat, and this article just tells us that how this is going to further aid India in its nuclear mission and vision. All right, then this article is on the entire foreign policy of Donald Trump, and how Donald Trump is blockading Strait of Hormuz is actually undoing everything that America has done for so many years. All right, then this article is on Artemis 2, and that it reached moon, and that it landed on a particular place, and that particular place has been, that bright spot on moon has been as of now named by the US astronauts, specifically one of them, which is Jeremy Hansen, that this particular spot would be called Carol. Why? Because one of the crew members, Reed Wiseman's late wife, was named Carol. Okay. Then a very wonderful article by Yogendra Yadav. Do go through it. It just draws our attention to the fact that maybe how the government is misleading people and women specifically along the lines of undertaking delimitation much before then we actually get the census data, which could actually do less for the betterment of women than do more for them. All right, so do go through it. Then this article again is a deep dive on Trump blockading the Strait of Hormuz and what all could it entail. Now, quickly coming to the news in brief, this is a continuation of the article that we just did before this, that was just did in the news in detail section, that now the IMD has forecasted that we might get monsoon below normal for the first time in 11 years. Why? Because this year we are anticipating an El Nino event. Okay. Then Nitish Kumar, he got elected to the Rajya Sabha recently, and because he got elected to the Rajya Sabha, whenever any politician gets elected to the parliament, he has to give up either one of his seats. Either he has to give up being an MLA or he has to give up being an MP. So he chose to give up being an MLA, got elected to the Rajya Sabha, and now a new Bihar government is to be instated tomorrow. Then this particular article is on Baisakhi, that how and why do we celebrate Baisakhi. So this very sweet article basically tells us that Baisakhi is celebrated most every year roughly on the 12th or 14th of on the 13th or 14th of April, and it was here which is significantly precisely significant for the Sikh people, because it was on this particular day that Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Guru, laid the entire foundation of Khalsa Panth, or the 5Ks. All right, so go through it. Then just 2 days back we lost Asha Bhosle, who was one of the most revered singers of India, and she was 92. So she has been cremated with state honors in Bombay. Then you all can take this quiz. It is on the International Day of Human Space Flight, which is observed on 12th of February, marking the space flight of Yuri Gagarin. All right. Then this particular article is a very sweet art. It's a quiz that they've given, and this quiz is why or how stars and the zodiac signs and New Year's are basically aligned. So this draws our attention to the fact of equinoxes and solstice, that on 21st of June we celebrate summer solstice. Why? Because apparently it is believed that the sun enters the zodiac sign of Cancer, and 22nd of December we celebrate winter solstice. And also in terms of zodiac signs, that the sun enters the Capricorn zodiac sign, right? So that is what it's basically talking about. So that is all for today's newspaper analysis, and I'll see you all soon with the next. Thank you.